Hi, it's Katrina. Today we are going on an incredible journey to meet the oldest statues in the world. We're talking about a time so far back it's almost impossible to imagine. We'll start with the famous 40,000-year-old Lion Man, an incredible piece of art that shows just how complex our ancient ancestors were. But what if I told you that some of the oldest sculptures on Earth weren't even made by human hands? We are diving into a fascinating world that's going to challenge everything you thought you knew about art and what it means to create. Get ready to explore some of the most mysterious objects ever found. The Lion Man. All right, friends, let me take you back. Not just a few hundred years, but 40,000 years, to a time when Europe was a brutal, beautiful landscape ruled by Ice Age giants. Woolly mammoths roamed the plains, and a fearsome predator, the giant cave lion, stalked the land. Now, in the Swabian Alps of Germany, there is a place called Hohlenstein-Stadel. It's a cave, a cold, north-facing crevice in the earth. Not a good place to live now, but thousands of years ago, this place was poppin'. This cave holds one of the most incredible secrets about who we are as human beings. In 1939, right before the world exploded into chaos, a team of archaeologists was digging in that cave. They found something, but not what they expected. Not a perfect artifact, but hundreds of shattered pieces of mammoth ivory. They packed it all up, and with the war breaking out, they put it in a box and put it away and forgot about it for decades. But in the 1960s, a team finally took a look at what was inside, and they started to piece it together. And what they saw was simply breathtaking. It was a figure about a foot tall and had the powerful body of a man standing upright on 2 feet. But the head was that of a ferocious cave lion. Behold the Lion-Man of Hohlenstein-Stadel, a sculpture that dates back 40,000 years ago. This statue looks like if Aslan from Narnia hit the gym, grew opposable thumbs, and joined a Paleolithic cult. But it's not just a statue. It's the oldest known figurative sculpture in the entire world. Now think about what this means. This wasn't some quick little project. Experts have recreated the carving process using the same kind of flint tools available back then, and they estimate it would have taken a skilled artisan over 400 hours to create. That's over a month of a hunter-gatherer's life, dedicated to carving this one thing. This was a significant amount of time for a small community living in difficult conditions. This indicated the sculpture must have been important for the whole group. This half-lion, half-human figurine was carved, presumably cherished, and then lost deep in a German cave, not once, but twice. First by its prehistoric makers, and then again amidst the chaos of World War II. So what was its purpose? Well, that's the strange and mysterious part. The sculpture's worn surface suggests it was passed around and handled as part of a narrative or a ritual. Its purpose could have been to help people come to terms with their place in the natural world, or to transcend it. The figure combines a human body with the fiercest predator of the time, carved from the tusk of the largest animal. It was full of symbolism. This wasn't something to be used for hunting or survival. This was something spiritual, something profound. The Lion Man is the oldest known representation of a supernatural being. It's thought to be part of a myth or a story that would have explained what it was all about. But of course, we've lost that. Something very interesting you should know is that the Lion Man was not found in a living space. It was found deep in a dark inner chamber of the cave, carefully put away. The statue was found buried over 3 feet underground, right at the spot in the cave where sunlight fades into eternal night. Basically, the spookiest place to leave your spiritual action figure. Scientists suspect its position, buried at the exact spot where light reaches the farthest into the cavern, on the precipice of utter darkness, could be ceremonial. It definitely had some meaning to it, but what? Maybe it's a shaman, a powerful figure from the tribe who could transform into the mightiest predator they knew. Maybe it's an ancestor spirit or a god itself, a mythical being that represented the balance between humanity and the wild world. The Lion-Man of Hohlenstein-Stadel shows us that even 40,000 years ago, our ancestors weren't just focused on food and fire. They were thinking about bigger things. They were creating, they were imagining, and they were telling stories. Stories about a world beyond the one they could see. And that, my friends, is a story that has lasted for millennia. More recently, some people have taken one look at this sculpture and made some shocking historical connections. Things get extra spicy when you see what people in India are saying about the sculpture. The lion god from Germany looks a lot like the Hindu deity Narasimha, but this would mean a connection between thousands of years and across continents. According to Silpa Shastra, an ancient Indian text on sacred arts, Lord Narasimha, a fierce avatar of the supreme god Vishnu, appears in exactly this form. Lion head, human body, ready to throw down against demons and protect the faithful. And now people are saying that this lion statue, uncovered in Germany, might actually be an ancient Indian relic. How it got to Germany, nobody knows. But if it's true, like the rumors say, it would push the origins of Hinduism, or at least its lion-headed gods, back 30,000 years. These same rumors say that the lion statue was carved at a time when an ancient, possibly Hindu civilization dominated the entire world. But wait, it gets even weirder. Lion-human hybrids pop up everywhere in ancient art. And when I say everywhere, I mean everywhere. Who doesn't like lions? Ever heard of Sekhmet, the lioness war goddess of Egypt? She looks nearly identical to Narasimha. And then there's Mithra, the Persian god tied to the sun and lions. Maybe Mithra wasn't depicted as a lion man, but he was deeply connected with lions. And don't forget the Assyrian Lamassu, the winged lion man mashups guarding Babylonian gates. Or the Gandaberunda, a double-headed bird lion form of Narasimha said to have wrestled Lord Shiva himself. Apparently, humans from Germany to India to Mesopotamia were obsessed with lions. And before you say there are no lions in Germany, Katrina, remember that this was the Ice Age, a time when cave lions still prowled Europe. Fun fact, cave lions went extinct in Europe 14,000 years ago. That being said, the Lion Man wasn't just a fancy cave lion. This figure was clearly part of something bigger, and it proves just how much we've always respected and admired lions, practically since the beginning of our existence. The Venus that predates humans. The Lion Man is old, but the Venus of Barakat Ram is so old, it even predates humans. A seemingly ordinary piece of volcanic rock holds a secret so immense, it redefines the timeline of human creativity and consciousness. If you're captivated by the origins of art, the evolution of our species, and puzzles older than civilization itself, the Venus of Barakat Ram will absolutely blow your mind. This thing is a palm-sized mystery from the dawn of creativity, shaped hundreds of thousands of years ago by a being who didn't even qualify as Homo sapiens. No, you don't need to adjust your volume. I really did say hundreds of thousands. Not tens, not normal thousands, but hundreds of thousands. This ancient sculpture predates us and even our Neanderthal cousins. It's basically the Banksy of the Stone Age, minus the social commentary and the spray paint. Have you ever heard of the Venus figurines? They are wildly ancient statues that portray a voluptuous woman. There are around 200 of these figurines known, usually dating back about 11,000 years. However, some, like the Venus of Hohlenstein-Stadel, date all the way back to the Aurignacian era, circa 35,000 years ago. That name's not very catchy and this era might not sound that good, but it was a great time. This was when stone tools and cave art started booming. Most of the figurines have wide hips and other large, exaggerated feminine features. No one knows what they are, but most historians suspect they were depictions of a female deity, possibly a mother goddess. The Venus of Barakat Ram is the oldest Venus ever discovered, but that's assuming it is a Venus and not something even stranger. Discovered in 1981 on the misty edges of Lake Ram in the Golan Heights between Syria and Israel, this little figurine first looked like nothing special. It was a lump of tuff, a type of rock born from volcanic ash, barely as long as your pinky finger. It kind of resembled a human if you squinted and had a good imagination. There wasn't anything particularly intriguing about the potential statue until It was put under the microscope. Scientists instantly spotted 3 distinct grooves, likely made with a stone tool. One deep cut marked the neck of the figure, while 2 shallow ones ran down the sides like tiny sculpted arms. These weren't random scratches. No freaking way. These were marks with purpose. It became abundantly clear to researchers that someone carved this thing. Suddenly, a volcanic rock went from worthless to the most important object ever found. Or at least one of them. It predates the Lion-Man by 200,000 years, maybe even 500,000. Did you spit your coffee out? Do you need to pause here and collect yourself? Because I did. I'll go slowly so that I don't shock you even more. The rock's geological dating is a total trip. It was found sandwiched between 2 layers of volcanic ash, one dated to 230,000 BC and the other to 700,000 BC, which means that this thing was carved sometime in that window. And you know what that means, right? It means the Lion Man is not the oldest statue like scientists keep telling us. It also means that humans had nothing to do with it because humans hadn't been genetically engineered by the Anunnaki yet. Or, we hadn't evolved naturally yet, obviously. So if not us, who's the mystery sculptor? Allow me to introduce you to a good buddy of mine, Homo erectus. He is our older, tougher, more thick-skulled ancestor. Homo erectus emerged in Africa nearly 2 million years ago and got around more than your friend with no job who somehow manages to travel to 3 countries a year. Homo erectus spread to Asia, built tools, hunted in groups, used fire, and even took care of their sick. They exhibited compassion and craftsmanship, 2 things that some Homo sapiens are still struggling to figure out. Scientists don't think they had language as we know it now, but they did have proto-speech, and apparently a flair for shaping rocks into vaguely voluptuous forms. Big win for Team Erectus. Did one of their kind carve this marvelous statuette? Unfortunately, they didn't stamp "Made by Erectus" on the bottom of the Venus. That certainly would have made things a whole lot easier. Although, not to worry, there is a clue. A similar figurine showed up in Morocco, known as the Venus of Tantan. It was also dated to between 200,000 and 500,000 years old. Deja vu in stone form. The 2 seem to have been made by the same artist, or they were at least inspired by the same artist. Maybe there was some Michelangelo going around teaching cave people how to make little sculptures. Or, and you're really not gonna like this, or this is all complete nonsense and the Venus is nothing but an actual rock that only kind of looks like other Venuses. That question of whether this thing was carved on purpose or is just a human-shaped rock still splits archaeologists faster than the flash at a bowling alley. Critics say the figurine's womanly shape could have been the work of weather and erosion. When quizzed about the marks that were clearly made by tools, archaeologists shrug and say it's just a coincidence. But what do you say? Does the Venus of Berekhat Ram force us to reconsider how we perceive early human species? I think it makes us reevaluate what it means to be human. Because if Homo erectus made this, then creativity, symbolism, and spirituality didn't begin with us. It began with beings we've underestimated for decades. And now for a quick break because it's shout-out time! I want to give a huge thank you to Paulette Grotrian and Marianne Cecily Moe for supporting this channel. Thanks so much for watching and let me know what other topics you'd like to hear about. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already for more videos like this. The Ain Ghazal statues of Jordan. What if ghosts posed for photos? Buried in the baking earth of Jordan, just outside the bustling city of Amman, archaeologists stumbled upon a mystery that looked like the Neolithic version of a Vogue photo shoot. That is, if Vogue had a thing for ghosts, twin-headed beings, and hollow-eyed humanoids. Welcome to Ain Ghazal, which in English translates to Spring of the Gazelle. It's where, some 9,000 years ago, a community of early agriculturalists gave the world a parting gift. When they vanished, they left behind a cache of eerily lifelike, wide-eyed statues that might be the oldest squad of ritual mannequins ever buried in bulk. Their names? Lost to time. Their purpose? Hotly debated. Their aesthetic? Very cool. Let's try to unravel the ancient enigma of the Ain Ghazal statues together. It all began in 1983, so not really even that long ago. A team of archaeologists was excavating the dusty remains of a once bustling prehistoric village near a busy Jordanian highway. Cars screeching by, probably a few cranky drivers throwing their finished coffee cups at the archaeologists. You know how it goes. Then came a surreal scene straight out of a horror fantasy movie. Dozens of plaster statues appeared from the dry and crusty dirt like the buried bodies of aliens. Some were even sporting two heads, like some freaky conjoined twins, while others boasted faint feminine curves. All of them stared at the archaeologists with hauntingly blank eyes. It was like digging up a haunted doll factory. Altogether, the team unearthed 32 statues, which are now considered some of the oldest large-scale human representations in the world. They date back to 6700 BC, putting them at least 7,000 years before Instagram filters and centuries ahead of anything the Egyptians or Greeks were doing. Getting these marvels out of the earth was no easy task. The first problem was the roadwork. By the time excavations began, 10% of the site had been destroyed by the construction of the road. To get the statues out of the dirt, they were block-lifted. To do this, scientists cut a chunk of earth out with the statue inside of it, and then lift the whole block out of the ground. Then the blocks were shipped to a lab in London, where scientists spent years peeling back millennia of dust like a very delicate plaster lasagna. It was all very advanced for the 1980s, but even with all of our science and machines and smart guys with beards and glasses, nobody knows who made these statues or what they were used for. Let me just say, they are nothing like Europe's ancient Venuses. These things are larger than life. The statues of Ain Ghazal were made from bundles of reeds tied together and coated with lime plaster, with facial details painted in bitumen, a fancy word for ancient tar. Some of them reached over 3 feet tall, which may not sound impressive until you realize that these were built by people who still thought that round stones made excellent knives. They have elongated torsos, withered little arms like T-Rexes, flat bodies that make absolutely no sense, and haunting almond-shaped eyes that make you feel like you've done something wrong. Seriously, don't try to have a staring contest with an Ain Ghazal statue. Not only will you lose, you might also lose your soul. Archaeologists suspect the statues were used as a form of ancestor worship, one of the earliest types of religious practices. British archaeologist Kathleen Kenyon noticed similarities between these statues and the plastered skulls recovered from Jericho, which is important because the Jericho skulls were real human heads plastered and painted after death as a way to honor important ancestors. I'll talk about the Jericho heads in another video soon, so be sure to keep your eyes peeled and check out more awesome stuff from Origins Explained after this video. Since the faces are so similar, Kathleen figures the Ain Ghazal statues were used for ancestor worship as well. They may have been stylized stand-ins for the dearly departed. Aunt Susie passed away last week, so let's make a creepy statue with soulless eyes to take her place for a while. That seems reasonable. The problem is that a lot of the statues have 2 heads. Who were these 2-headed statues supposed to represent? Did Uncle Terry have 2 heads? If it was one statue, okay, conjoined twins. That would be a no-brainer. But there are tons of 2-headed statues. There might be something wrong with this family tree, guys. Another popular theory is that the statues are ghosts, like actual spirits. Some scholars have pointed to Babylonian cuneiform texts that describe rituals where ghosts representing figurines were created to either expel bad spirits or summon helpful ones. They were sort of like voodoo dolls, designed to summon the spirits they resembled. This would make a lot more sense for the dual-headed things, as I believe more in 2-headed ghosts than 2-headed grandpas. To put this whole conundrum in context, you should know that Ain Ghazal wasn't some lonely little hut in the desert. In the 8th millennium BC, this place was popping off at the seams. What started as a modest village of a few hundred grew into a sprawling Neolithic metropolis with around 2,500 people in it. That's a lot of chickpeas and lentils to farm. They lived in stone and mud houses, domesticated goats because who wouldn't? Practiced agriculture, and gradually transitioned from stone tools to early pottery. But over time, their diet narrowed, their housing changed, and their population declined. By 5000 BC, the party was over, the fields went quiet, and the statues were buried like sacred relics. And to this day, no one, and I mean no one, Not even Graham Hancock of Ancient Apocalypse knows what became of these mysterious people. They seem to have run into trouble, a trouble that led to their doom. They've been gone for 7,000 years. All that remains of their legacy are these inexplicable, crazy-eyed statues. How much would you pay to have one of these suckers in your living room? The Charioteer of Delphi. Forget your influencers because this guy is influence. Frozen in bronze and bathed in silence, a young man stands stoic, statuesque, and somehow still more emotionally controlled than you on a Monday before coffee. He is the Charioteer of Delphi, and he didn't just win a race, he conquered time. All right, this guy is pretty epic. I want to go back to his beginning, to the year 470 BC. Ancient Greece was in full swing. They had their sports, their laws, their armies, their Olympic Games, and one of the most popular spectator sports was chariot racing. Victory was all-consuming for the racers. Those who won would celebrate in a big way, often commissioning life-size statues of themselves. That's what happened with the Charioteer of Delphi. It's a life-sized bronze sculpture of someone who won a very important race. This was the Max Verstappen of the 5th century BC. Imagine if a whole sports team immortalized themselves like this. Every stadium in the world would be populated by dull-eyed statues of Super Bowl winners. Is this a good practice, or should we stop talking about it right now before someone runs with the idea? The Charioteer of Delphi depicts the driver of a chariot at the exact moment that he is hailed victorious. It's a triumphant moment reflected in the metal visage of the youth. You can see the glory in his inlaid eyes and bronze eyebrows. And although he may look stoic or stern to you, he is actually a little overexcited. Ancient Greeks were like Vulcans, believing emotional displays to be overrated, unless it was wine night with Nero and Dionysus, in which case emotions ran wild. The Greeks believed that real strength was emotional self-control. They even had a name for it, sophrosyne, I don't know. Repeat this to your philosophy professor for a few extra points at your next class. The Charioteer is considered one of Greece's most important ancient statues. But what makes it so special other than its fierce gaze? There are the curls, meticulously sculpted to look windswept and sweat-dampened. These pre-shower ringlets are the stuff of shampoo commercials and ancient poetry. Then you've got his face, his timeless face that is somehow humble, heroic, and a little bit I'm too emotionally balanced for this nonsense. Lastly, his chiton is spot on. Chiton is a word describing ancient driving gear. The guy is draped in it like marble origami, dressed to impress and beat the rest. Experts think the statue was part of a larger group, a full bronze chariot ensemble including 4 horses, a groom, and the chariot itself. The whole set was commissioned by Polyzalus, the tyrant of Gila, a Greek colony in Sicily. This dude was bad to the bone. Polyzalus commissioned the set not to celebrate a specific charioteer like you would think, but as a thank you to the sun god Apollo for helping him win big at the Pythian Games. The Pythian Games are sort of like a sacred chariot death match. If someone could somehow bring the Pythian Games back today, they'd probably become the hottest sporting event in the world. Just picture a bunch of sweaty, greased-up Greeks with rippling muscles racing around a dirt track in chariots, all while risking life and limb. Would you tune in? The games were held at the site of Delphi every 4 years. They were second only to the Olympics in prestige and danger to life ratio. In fact, there were originally 4 different games known as the Pan-Hellenic Games. These were the precursors to the Olympics, and it all began at Delphi. Delphi was also home to the Temple of Apollo and the Oracle of Delphi, who sometimes twisted the fates of kings. I guess I'm trying to say that Delphi was the Vegas of ancient Greece. You got your sports, your oracles, your temples. What more does an ancient Greek mercenary need? Now let's talk craftsmanship, because that is where the charioteer truly shines. The statue's feet aren't just there to stop him from tipping over. They are sculpted with such detail and naturalism that art historians still swoon over the way they subtly twist, balancing the body like it's mid-pivot in a basketball match. What's even more amazing is the fact that this statue survived the years, the wars, the disasters. It's unprecedented. Bronze sculptures in antiquity were rarer than honesty in politics. Most were melted down for weapons or forgotten in the earth. But the charioteer was buried, which protected him from the wear and tear of time. And today, you can see him nearly complete, minus a missing arm, in his own dedicated room in the Delphi Museum. His patina, originally bluish, has aged into green, though traces of that original blue hue still peek through. He is a time capsule in metal, a face from 500 years ago that could still outmodel half the cast of Love Island. Sorry to say it, everyone, but the charioteer is a heartthrob. This statue is alive, kind of. Some exhibits are more alive than others. Sitting quietly in a museum, looking like every other ancient relic, was a serene, unbothered golden Buddha statue. One that certainly didn't appear to be hiding a dead person inside, but it was. Scientists nearly spontaneously combusted from the shock when they scanned the 1,000-year-old Buddha statue and found a body in it. They think it's the body of a monk, a guy who mummified himself on purpose. He is inside the statue, chilling in the lotus position like he hit pause on life 10 centuries ago and is still waiting to hit play. This is one of the strangest yet most fascinating archaeological discoveries ever made, complete with ancient rituals, extreme monk diets, toxic tea, and a body in a Buddha. That's something you definitely don't hear every day. To understand not only why a man would lock himself inside a golden Buddha, but how he would go about doing it, I have to take you back to ancient China, to the 11th century AD, when this golden beauty of a Buddha statue was first crafted. Statues like this, roughly 3.5 feet tall and made from gold-painted papier-mâché like the spiritual cousin of a piñata, were sacred. They often served as eye candy in the corners of temples. People prayed to them, meditated with them, and treated them like actual embodiments of the Buddha's teachings. No one in their right mind would have guessed that a statue loaned to the Drents Museum in the Netherlands was secretly the world's most hardcore monk-shaped nesting doll. I mean, who would even consider it was hiding a corpse? Museum pieces don't usually come stuffed with bodies like ghoulish hand puppets. Thankfully, a group of Dutch researchers and doctors from Meander Medical Center wanted to do a CT scan on the statue. Not to check for bodies, but to see how it was built. Then they found bones, human ones, seated in a perfect lotus position. What kind of hardcore monk is still vibing inside a statue like it's no big deal after 1,000 years? Turns out, this wasn't just a well-preserved body. It was a sokushinbutsu. That's the traditional term for Buddhist monks who voluntarily mummified themselves alive to reach enlightenment. Very extreme, no? Mummifying yourself alive just sounds like a lot of work and suffering. And it is. You think your juice cleanse is tough? This guy drank toxic tree sap on purpose to turn into a mummy. Sokushinbutsu was a brutal spiritual journey practiced by a handful of monks in Japan and China from the 11th to the 19th century, kind of recently. Here's how the process went down. First, the monk ditched all human pleasures, starting with food. For years, he lived off nuts, seeds, and berries to shrink down and eliminate his body fat. It was the ancient monk version of intermittent fasting, except the end goal was death. Pretty grim now that you think about it. Next, the monk would drink tea made from toxic urushi tree sap. Think kombucha if kombucha could kill you and preserve your insides for all eternity, which if you've ever tried kombucha, maybe it can. This step killed off gut bacteria and parasites, embalming the monk from the inside out. Once fully prepped, the monk would crawl into a cramped stone tomb, assume the lotus position, and start meditating. A small air tube and a bell were the only thing that kept him in touch with the world. When he rang the bell each day, people knew he was still alive. When the bell stopped, it was tomb sealing time. The monk was locked into his tomb without anyone checking on him. Then they'd open the tomb a few years later. If the body was intact and mummified, the monk was declared a living Buddha. If not, better luck in the next life. The next time you pass by an ancient statue, ask yourself, who's really in there? because apparently you never know when your statue comes with a free mummy inside, like a really twisted Kinder Surprise. The triple-headed goddess of the night. Buried for centuries, she's finally ready for her close-up. In the sun-baked ruins of an ancient coastal city where the Mediterranean breeze still whispers through stone columns, archaeologists brushed aside centuries of dust and found a goddess waiting. A goddess unlike any you've met before, her arms open and her 3 heads ready to curse you to hell. You might want to take cover because Hecate has entered the arena. Her statue was unearthed in the ancient city of Kalenderis, located in modern-day Turkey. Archaeologists say this statue is 2,300 years old. But why 3 heads? Because this is Hecate, the Greek goddess of moonlight, magic, and ghosts. If Hades ran the underworld, Zeus ran Olympus, and Poseidon ran the seas, Hecate ran the night shift of the cosmos. Some have called her the ultimate multitasker. Hecate handled magic, ghosts, necromancy, doorways, crossroads, and lunar chaos, all while being pretty chill about it. She was like the Greek pantheon's goth cousin, mysterious, powerful, and not afraid to hex your crops if you crossed her sacred boundary. And yes, she's got 3 heads. Not because she's a deformed mutant, but because she sees in all directions at once. The ancient Greeks positioned her statues at crossroads and other places where the mundane met the magical. She was erected anywhere that fate could go, left, right, or straight into the underworld, because it was believed she saw all possible outcomes at once. This figurine found in Kalenderis is tiny. It's small enough that you could replace the shoe in Monopoly with it. Although I wouldn't. Have you ever played a board game with a relic older than Jesus? The statuette was discovered buried beneath the floor behind the Odeon, a kind of mini theater the Greeks loved for poetry, music, and maybe dramatic magical incantations. Most cities had an Odeon, like most Roman cities had an arena or an amphitheater. If you're wondering why anyone would bury a statue under the floor, it was pretty popular. Let me explain. The Greeks were all about rituals and offerings. Someone probably stashed the statue of Hecate, goddess of liminality, transformation, and other spooky business, under the floor as an offering to the goddess herself. Maybe it was someone looking to curse a scorned lover, capture the eye of a desired lover, or any number of things. What would you ask Hecate for if you could have one prayer answered? The head of the excavation, Associate Professor Mahmoud Aydin, confirmed the find and its significance, noting that Kalenderis had ties to Hecate's major cult center in Lagina. In fact, Kalenderis was on the official Friends of Hecate list. They sent athletes to Lagina for games held in the goddess's honor every 5 years. They had the Pythian Games in Delphi, while over in Turkey, Hecate worshippers were doing their own games. Does this mean the Greeks were the original gamers? After proper examination, the Hecate statue will be housed in the Silifke Museum, joining other artifacts, including more creepy statues that feel like they watch you when you stroll by. Hecate stands as a reminder of an age when the world was full of magic, superstition, fear, faith, and a goddess who could see you from all sides. I know they say you can't hide from Santa Claus, but really, you can't hide from the goddess of the night. That's who I'd be more worried about. Thanks for watching. If you could have one of these ancient statues, which one would you like to have in your house? Let me know in the comments. Be sure to subscribe and let me know what else you'd like me to talk about in future videos. See you later. Bye.